Coming up in the news, COVID-19 cases continue to spike on Grand Bahama. The nation's leader announcing a number of safety and enforcement measures. And a government delegation touring repairs underway at public schools. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Megan Shepard. Thank you so much for tuning in. Topping the news, a spike in COVID-19 cases forcing the government to impose additional restrictions here on Grand Bahama. During a national address yesterday, the Prime Minister outlined a series of restrictions, including the closures of the borders to domestic and international traffic. The tightening of restrictions coming after Grand Bahama recorded 31 new cases within the past 2 weeks. The nation's leader warned that if these measures do not result in a reduction of infections, more drastic measures would be taken. Italia Hall reports.
Grand Bahama has seen a resurgence of COVID-19 cases after being COVID-19 free for a little over 2 months. There has been 31 new cases in the past 2 weeks. According to Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, the increase in cases coincided with the reinstitution of international flights and passenger sea transport.
Regrettably, surveillance teams have traced many of the cases to Bahamians returning to the Bahamas. Because of the increase of COVID-19 confirmed cases in Grand Bahama and consultation with health officials, I wish to announce the following measures for Grand Bahama. A new curfew for Grand Bahama will be implemented from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily.
All public and private beaches and parks are now closed until further notice.
National and domestic borders will be closed to all incoming and outgoing flights and sea vessels to and from Grand Bahama, except for emergencies and to transport essential services and goods. Effective midnight, Wednesday, the 22nd of July, 2020. Ferry boat operations between East End, Grand Bahama, and Crown Haven, Abaco, will not be allowed.
Health officials on Grand Bahama have recommended stricter enforcement of social distancing and mask wearing, with fines for non-compliance. To address the potential for community spread, indoor dining is now closed, but outdoor dining, takeaway, and curbside delivery will be permitted. Bars remain closed.
All fish fries, inclusive of, but not limited to 8 Mile Rock, Smiths Point, West End, and Williamstown, will be closed, effective tomorrow, the 20th of July. All congregant activities and gatherings, inclusive of religious services, weddings, funerals, and sporting activities, will not be allowed effective Monday, the 20th of July, 2020.
This does not include students taking national examinations. Now the nation's leader noting that if efforts to decrease the number of cases are unsuccessful, other restrictive measures may be recommended, including a lockdown beginning Friday, July 24th.
To enhance the capacity of health officials on the island, in this regard, a 7-member team from the Ministry of Health arrived on Grand Bahama yesterday, Saturday, the 18th of July. And this team is assisting with identification testing and mapping of contacts for characterization of the epidemiological situation following the significant increase in the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases on that island.
The health team is made up of 3 physicians, 1 microbiologist, and 3 nurses who will provide public health and clinical support to the Grand Bahama team.
Team's assistance will include public educational sessions, data gathering exercises, case investigations, contact tracings, as well as sample collection.
Prime Minister Min is asking Grand Bahamans to cooperate with health measures. He says if the current increase in confirmed cases are addressed as quickly as possible, Grand Bahama can return to a greater sense of normalcy as soon as possible. It's Talia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Now, also during his national address yesterday, Prime Minister Minnis noted that the government is doing everything possible to ensure that the health protocols and emergency orders are enforced to limit the spread of the virus and to avoid further restrictive control measures. Among the enforcement measures are fines for falsifying results of a COVID-19 test, knowingly exposing or infecting another person to the coronavirus, and breaking mandatory or self-quarantine. It is now an offense for someone to submit a falsified result of a COVID-19 diagnostic test or to undergo the test prior to their departure from the Bahamas and present the results of the test on return to the Bahamas as though the test had been carried out in another jurisdiction. Such persons will be liable to a fine not exceeding $2,000 or 2 years imprisonment or both. Where a person knows or reasonably believes that they are infected with the COVID-19 virus and causes another to be exposed or infected, that person commits an offense and upon summary conviction is liable to a fine not exceeding $1,000 in respect of each person who has been exposed or infected. It shall also be an offense for an airline or a sea vessel to permit a passenger to board not wearing a face mask and without an approved travel health card from the Ministry of Health. Upon summary conviction, the operator shall be subject to a fine of $500 in respect of each passenger in violation. Anyone who leaves mandatory or self-quarantine before being released by the Ministry of Health will be liable to a fine of $250. The Prime Minister added that the Royal Bahamas Police Force will continue to be responsible for the monitoring and enforcement of the COVID-19 emergency orders through the establishment of a new enforcement unit. The unit will coordinate activities to educate and ensure that all Bahamians, residents, and visitors are adhering to the enforcement protocols of the emergency powers orders to keep communities safe. The Royal Bahamas Police Force is making final preparations for the COVID-19 Command Center at the Cable Beach Police Station, from which all Hubcat monitors, dispatchers, and COVID-19 ambassadors will be controlled. Across the islands of the Bahamas, the unit will have 177 COVID-19 ambassadors, 23 Hubcat monitors, and 21 vehicles dedicated to this specific enforcement purpose. The enforcement unit will also monitor individuals in quarantine, ensure that the general public is adhering to the COVID-19 orders, ensure that business establishments are adhering to the COVID-19 orders, and monitor beaches and parks. While the Member of Parliament for West Grand Bahama and Bimini, Keisha Parker Edgecomb, endorsing the stringent measures announced by the Prime Minister. Parker Edgecomb appealing to her constituents in the West and the Greater Grand Bahama community to adhere to the new regulations in an effort to defeat the deadly virus.
It is expected that the stringent measures now taking place in Grand Bahama was going to be met with mixed reactions and emotions. I believe that people want to move. That's something that they innately do. And so when there are measures put in place to control that movement, you're always going to have some pushback. The decisions being made aren't always going to be easy. But I do believe that in recommending these newest guidelines and protocols and policies as a result of health officials' advice, I think that the Prime Minister would have done what was necessary at this particular time. And so I continue to make appeals to West Grand Bahama in any form that we must adhere to what it is that is being recommended.
Parker Edgecomb says while some question the decision to discontinue commercial flights temporarily to the South Florida market, that is a hotspot for COVID-19. She says she agrees with the move and notes that it is for the greater good of this island.
As for closing the borders to the U.S., I don't think that we're turning our backs on the U.S. We're quite aware of what the U.S. has done for this country and will continue to do. But at the end of the day, we are just here saying we have a small population of people. We need to protect our citizens. We need to ensure that we have a population for the future. And if temporary closure to the United States is what is needed at this time because of their spike in cases, then I don't think that there was even a doubt of the decision that had to be made.
The courts and offices at the Garnet Justice Center have been shut down. This according to a statement from the Office of the Judiciary. Based on advice from the Ministry of Health, the Garnet Justice Center here in Freeport is temporarily closed as of today, July 20th. This action is taken out of an abundance of caution pending the completion of an ongoing investigation by health officials. Further information will be made available as soon as the investigation is concluded. The C.A. Smith Complex is another government building recently shut down as a result of COVID-19. Tonight, Jay Philippe talks with the head of the immigration about the cleaning progress to date.
Just last week, the C.A. Smith Government Complex was completely shut down for extensive cleaning after an illegal migrant detained at the Department of Immigration holding cells in the building had tested positive for COVID-19. Hubert Ferguson, Assistant Director of Immigration, says the building has since been completely sanitized.
That has been completed. It has been cleaned. We give it chance to air out and we reopen on Friday. Our office is still in quarantine, probably another couple of days. I am satisfied with the cleaning process and everybody back to work now.
Ferguson says members of the enforcement team who were quarantined over the past week is expected to return to work soon. He notes that some additional officers have been screened and are expected to be tested soon. He says work continues at the complex that houses several other government agencies.
The mere fact that they reported for duty means that they're satisfied with the cleaning process. So we're ready to, it's not almost a business as usual. Okay, so we would like to invite the public to come on in, and we're still practicing social distancing because of the COVID-19 pandemic that we are undergoing right now. So,
with the recent increase of COVID-19 cases in Grand Bahama, Ferguson says additional measures will be enforced for immigration officers to reduce the possible spread of the coronavirus.
We will definitely try to keep a social distance to ensure that the officers are safe and so forth. And whatever we can do, we're in the process of getting some thermometers too, so we can do some testing as well.
I'm Jay Philippe, ZNS Network News.
Now to another government agency. The Road Traffic Department is advising the public that due to COVID-19, their office hours will be reduced as of tomorrow. Road traffic licensing and inspection will operate between the hours of 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. until further notice. Persons are asked to conduct their business in the specified period. There is a new Minister of Health to help chart the country safely through this global pandemic. The Prime Minister announcing yesterday that the Honorable Renwick Ricardo Wells is now the new Minister of Health. Wells' appointment comes more than 2 months after the resignation of Dr. Dwayne Sands as Minister of Health. The Prime Minister also announcing that Senator Dion Fowkes will take on added responsibilities for transport and local government, along with his existing labor portfolio. Member of Parliament for Bainton Grantstown, Travis Robinson, was reappointed as Parliamentary Secretary for Ministry of Tourism and Aviation.
Greetings. My name is Pastor Paul Godfrey Mullins. Why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted in me? Hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him for the help of his countenance. Psalms 42 and 5. In 1 Samuel chapter 30, verses 1 through 8, we read where David and his men came to Ziklag, and they found that the Amalekites and invaded Ziklag and destroyed it. They had taken the women captives. No one was killed, however, but everyone, great and small, were carried captive, their wives, their sons, and their daughters. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. On September 1st last year, the strongest hurricane on record slammed into Abaco and Grand Bahama, leaving a trail of death and destruction. Many are still grieving. Like David, let us encourage ourselves in the Lord according to 2 Corinthians 4, 8 and 9. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. And David inquired at the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, Pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. As we continue to go through the COVID-19 virus pandemic, I invite you to trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And we know, according to Romans 8:28, that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Why are you cast down, and why are you disturbed? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my help and my God. Psalm 42 and 12. God is our only hope.
Government officials getting a view of repairs to public schools. That story coming up.